Morning and thank you everybody for coming today. I'm looking forward to having increased understanding and a little bit of an education for everybody today. So we have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's a quorum. So, but welcome to all the alternates to participate. And Board of Selectmen too, if you have questions, you're welcome to type in. So today is about having an understanding of the financial reports that are generally presented to us so that we know the structure of them and where the information comes from and how it's related.
Point of order. I think you need to call the meeting to order before we move forward.
I thought I did. Sorry. Calling to order. It's 10:04. We don't need to seat alternates at this point, but they're welcome. Thanks, Carol. It's an unusual meeting, so a little different. But anyway, I think that I'll let I gave the April reports as an example because they did not have errors in them and things, so that especially the newer Board of Finance members can see how they are intended to be presented and how they hopefully will be presented in the future. But of course, we're transitioning in July, I think, too. So we'll undergo a little bit of change then too. But so the April reports were your guide for questions. And I don't know exactly how best to go about the questions, or maybe an orientation would be best for Michelle and Linda to give. Thank you.
Go ahead. So let's do a summary about what you have in front of you and where it comes from. The front sheet that you see here is a snapshot of everything. It is what consists of our general fund and what we're projecting it might look like on June 30th of any particular year, right? The first half. Little snippet in the middle of the capital reserves. When I used to do it, I would update this side quarterly because it's only interest, except for in August when the capital reserves get funded.
So this has normally been updated quarterly because of the interest.
Yeah, depending on
that information.
Yeah, depending on it. I mean, $3 and something to
Right.
account is
It's not worth it.
really.
But it is helpful to have it
But you
updated
have, but
quarterly.
on your,
Quarterly,
you're
yeah.
right, and I don't print it when I used to not print it. I would do it quarterly because when I sent you the file, it had the reserves, you know, one of the tabs is reserves, right? So, anyway, and then at the bottom is a snapshot of all the budgets. Okay, and where they stand. And then at the very bottom is the ARPA reconciliation.
On this sheet,
We're talking about the sheet,
the summary,
the front, yep.
on the first half, you're connected by the cash requirements for fiscal 2023 to 23 Kellogg's accounts payable with this $774,000 number. And it connects to this cash requirement down below.
Correct.
Right.
That's under the assumption that you receive every revenue that's projected and you spend every cent of every budget. That's the assumption.
That's what
At this point in time, you can't look at it different than that.
Any other questions about the summary sheet?
I have plenty, let me let you finish.
So then you go to your second page. Second 2 pages, which is your revenue report. This comes off of all the Novak and Dodd program, which gets balanced, down here, which gets balanced to make sure that this report agrees with what comes off all the Novak and Dodd programs.
Novak and Dodd.
It's our accounting program.
Your accounting,
It's just
your
our-
accounting.
It's equivalent to QuickBooks, but a little archaic. That's why we're moving.
Your system, yeah.
Correct, right, it's just the system. And so, in looking at the front page and the revenue report. You have to. Previous Board of Finances, we pulled out the numbers on your right-hand side that are negative, you know, like in the parentheses, because that's stuff that's over collected of what we projected. And so we want to really know what we're really expecting more to come in. If you put those into that revenue reflected line there, that lowers your
Oh, my
projected.
question. Okay, so you're just
that
putting it there,
hold
but
it
it doesn't
on-
have a title, the column doesn't have a title.
It doesn't, no, it doesn't.
So which column you're referring to?
This one.
Not on the to the right, the one that has everything in parentheses. That
Why don't I
means
see
it's
this one?
over what
Um,
was budgeted.
You're on the
What was projected
expenditure.
to come
You're
Yeah,
in.
on the
they're out of
expenditure.
order. Okay, that's what.
You can't
There
budget.
it is,
Right
there it is.
Okay, there it is. Okay,
Okay,
okay.
this one.
Thank you.
Past taxes or interest or liens or anything like that.
So those-
because we project a full collection every year.
So it's revenue that's not budgeted. It's revenue,
It's more.
Extra.
revenue that's
It's a
coming
overage?
forward,
Over-collected.
Overage
Yeah.
of what we projected coming in. It's
Well,
not-
not- I
it's
can't
not
say
a
it-
negative number.
yeah, I was
it's
gonna say, it's not really what you over, but it's things that you
It's over collected.
over collected.
over-
You're not
I
collecting.
like the way you
Right.
use that.
And we can,
Yeah,
and you can, we
over-collected.
can title that.
Okay.
Okay,
I can put a title.
I think there should be a
That's
title
fine.
on it, yeah.
We get a pen.
Yeah. Um,
Overcollected.
You don't summarize that at the bottom.
no, I don't.
Yeah, and that's why I think it,
It'd be,
because
You
it's
can
in
pull
the
down- You
numbers.
can pull it down.
might be handy.
because it's in the
It would
numbers.
also help when you're looking
Yeah,
at,
'cause there
when
it
you
is.
go month to month and you look at your projected, June 30th balance. If we looked at March's, I'm always looking at that to see if I'm in range. But if your general fund looks like it goes up like 30,000 and it's like, why did it go up 30,000? Well, then you look at
That
your
column.
overages on your revenue side and that equals out why, your general fund went up.
That's very helpful.
So Linda, as a point, make sure I understand this correctly. Does the revenue uncollected number incorporate also the over collected into it, or no?
No,
No,
no, no. Your uncollected is that one. The one,
Right,
the
okay,
second one in.
They're separate.
right, I just
Right.
wanna make sure. we're
it's in
not-
the year-to-date total, but
It is
it's
in
not,
the year-to-date.
it's not
in
what
the
you're,
year-to-date total.
it's not
This
what
one
you're,
here,
Right, it's your, yeah. And also on that report, on the revenue report. I would put in, changes in any budget lines. If you gave a supplemental appropriation to something, either Board of Finance or the town meeting. That is put into this, as you can see on that second page of the revenue report, it says it's September 28th of 22 at town meeting. To add $17,000 to the,
I mean, this section.
P and Z. P and Z's department. And when you change something on your expenditure budget, you have to include it in your revenue budget, so you would see, that's where you will see the, that last line appropriation from general fund. This one down here. Down here, but we go to budget, that should go up by all those appropriations.
okay.
Okay, because you've got to make your budgets equal. You have to make your municipal and your board of ed equal your revenue budget.
Yeah.
In the budgeted side.
So you're saying in the column amended revenue budget? In that column?
Right, the amended,
Right.
yep,
Okay.
it should go up by the amounts that have been, given at the bottom.
So that 261,379,
Mhm.
your,
Original at the May meeting when we approved the budget, we approved 235,000, blah, blah, blah. With all these amendments, you're up to 261.
But the 150 is not in there.
yeah, So which
You're
are,
absolutely right.
which are?
Oh, no, because that got
Because there's
amended-
something
that
else,
got
there's something
amended
different
over-
with that, right?
Over,
So I'm
you
not
come back over.
trying to understand that.
It is amended over here, to Public Works. That's Aquarians, that's.
Yep, that's
Wait,
Aquarian,
you're-
public
let's
works.
see when you-
On the
Aquarian.
revenue,
Page of that,
Right, go back to the first page and go.
about halfway down,
Work
Public Works.
out
There it is.
there's, yeah,
halfway
no,
down here.
Okay.
down
And you'll
here,
see that there
across
was
it.
no budgeted amount, but then it was amended to the 150.
50, so 150, the revenue came, in. Okay.
Okay, I just wanna follow, so hold on, Public Works, okay, I got it.
And if, go back here,
So
the
everything,
dog fund and the state, library state grant on the second pages, those will all go to, and I've given you the account numbers that they went to. Some of them, if it's coming strictly out of the general fund, that's when you, that's when you amend this appropriation down here.
Okay,
so
When it's
So let's-
coming
so
out,
back-
but when
so
we
back-
get that grant, like the state grant was for like.
so if you have a line number, so let me just clarify, so
Yep.
there's a line number here at the
Yep.
bottom, under the appropriations, then it hit a specific line at the top.
Correct,
yeah,
If it does not have a line number, it's hitting the general fund.
correct.
which
And I
means,
should put, we should put that.
You should
14,
kind of put
14.
either an asterisk
And I
or put
think I
something
probably
that
have
links.
in the
Oh, it
past,
is a
it's just-
1,400, okay.
Yeah, you put it into 1,400.
That would
I
be
can put
helpful.
that, right.
Okay, so asterisk
Right.
next to the.
Yeah, or an
Yeah,
asterisk, or
just
put the
put-
1,400.
Something.
Put the
Okay.
14,954,
1400.
so that way it increased to 17 and the 5,
26.
Yeah.
So you're saying it increased by 26,000?
the
Excuse me?
appropriation.
The appropriation from the general fund because of the 17,400 and the 5K increased by 26,000.
No, that would be too high.
22.
Well, 17
And
plus
5,
9.
It's
5.
Oh,
So that was-
102.
That's also part of the first
That's-
page. Yep.
Oh, that's part of the, okay, so it only increased by the 22. But,
It's increased by more.
yeah,
Yeah,
increased
it's
by more than
more
that.
Hey, this is the workings, sorry. Wait a second, let's see. this.
So maybe,
Oh, because, we see that last in
26.
in March, the bottom part there. 5, the 9,000.
Referring to, Linda, which sheet are you referring to?
Oh, sorry, the second page of the revenue, down
Okay.
here on the bottom, because we're coming
Okay.
back to what changed this appropriation up here.
Okay,
This is not in one of these lines up here.
Well,
It
that's
is,
what-
it is in the general fund.
can you just say what this is?
102.
Dog fund for 5,000 and, the website, that's 1002.
So it's
The fourth, so that
26,000.
It is
9,000
26,000.
actually
Where's
came
the
out of the
website?
general fund. That was a
So
special.
They're taking these 3 numbers,
Yeah, because
Right,
that's the
they're
budget.
coming from the general fund. The WS is the web, and it should have a descriptor
Okay,
next to it.
it should have,
Just-
okay.
yeah. I get it. Makes sense.
So we had originally budgeted for the general fund 234,379.
235.
235,
370.
Correct.
35.
Yep.
Okay, great.
and then the
It's
26
the 26.
is what came from the general fund
Which was
for
added to the amended
17,
budget.
added to the
19
amended
and the
budget.
9, right, right.
That's 26.
So even though from our reading perspective, it should have the 1,400 in front of them. If they went into that general fund, right?
Correct,
Mhm.
yes.
So I'm not getting
So these should all have 14.
234.
See, that that's the problem, because I just assume everybody knows that stuff.
I'm
Sorry.
I'm.
You know
But
what it
because you were
means.
here part of the, part of those appropriations, if you've been here at the Board of Finance meetings, you would know that that was coming out of the general fund. If you had been involved
Right.
back then, right?
So it looks like it would be helpful to know what things in here are already in the previous page, because I don't get 234,379, I get 235, and maybe it's because of the $1,000, maybe that's not in
There is
there.
235.
Yeah.
Where are you looking?
Where
are you looking
at?
You said that we had approved a budget of 234.
235.
235, okay, then I am getting that.
235.
235.
Okay, great. Okay, so, but again, it would be good to have that clear to us about which are already in that number and which are.
We can put, she can put the account number
Yeah.
for the general fund,
Great,
that
great,
1,400
great.
next to it.
But Amy, there will be none of these down below are in the 235.
No,
Okay,
only,
okay.
only the next line.
The
Oh, the
next
next
line
line
over, the
Column over,
261.
column
yeah,
over,
no, I'm
right.
looking-
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
Okay. Okay, all good on that page, revenue? So then your monthly expenditure report comes from, again, our accounting system, and it's the bottom line of every department. The budget that we approve, the bottom line of every department is our budget. The little sublines are information on how we come to spend, say, selectmen's expenses, how we come up with 58,608. Right? We say it's salaries and whatever, if you have the budget pages.
This is a summary of
The
each.
summary of
each
every
section.
bottom
Yeah,
line
yeah, makes
department,
sense.
right?
Yeah, that's appropriate for, That's
And that is
reporting.
balanced out to all the no records odd one that I have that is detailed. Okay, if we go, when we go to QuickBooks, budget P and L will show all that detail. But the little sublines can go, other than salary, can go over, or under
all the time.
all the time. It's just that bottom line cannot go over or under, can't go over without your approval or a town's approval. Okay,
Only by the end of the year. though.
That's what I was gonna ask
right,
you.
right. We don't.
Monthly, we don't worry
we
about,
don't have
right?
anything
Yeah.
yeah.
We're headed
In the
in a
past,
certain
we've never
direction.
done anything crazy until we get to about April, May, because then I can see
Where we're
Where you're headed.
where somebody might, transfer station might, their fees might have gone out of whack or crazy. And,
The revenue might be greater because of the bulk waste. I'm sorry, I don't mean to.
right, but that doesn't affect your expenditure side,
Right.
you're on your revenue side.
Right.
You can, not supposed to mix and municipal, you're not supposed to put deposits into your expenditure side.
Right.
Unless it's a reimbursement of an expense that was done.
But you usually know by that last quarter where we're headed.
Right,
And that's
come
when you
June, when I
alert
would
us.
come to the Board of Finance and say, well, these are the, I would send an email saying, these are the accounts that are gonna go over and why they're gonna go over. Because I don't amortize all the way out, I do simple amortization for our interest, that department's always gonna be off a little bit because of the interest. It's just
Yeah.
because of the interest calculation. I
This
do
is on,
simple
and is
interest.
this on an accrual basis?
This is on a
That's
cash
basis.
basis.
All right, that's what I
This is-
remember.
All this is cash, our audit is accrual.
Cool. So you're pushing back whatever you.
Yep.
For the accrual, for the audit, but everything we're seeing here is cash basis.
Cash basis, yes.
Okay.
Simple bookkeeping.
I'm sure that
Simple,
was
I'm
in the
not an
report.
accountant. It's simple bookkeeping. That's all it is.
Got it.
And something that being new to, Board of Finance, the percentages
Yes.
used on
Mhm.
the side, sometime will look really skewed, like come
101.
September, it'll look like we spent 50% of a department, or we've spent 100% of a department. It's because those things come due, we have to pay them the beginning of the year. And so that skews it.
Prepaid expenses.
Yeah, and because you're not doing an accrual basis, it's gonna come right in on cash, it's not gonna hit and
Exactly,
spread over each month.
exactly. But at the end
after
of the,
prepaid.
end of the day, end of the year.
It all
comes
balances out.
where
It
it's
should.
supposed to be.
Right.
So you have a budget, or as Board of Finance, we're approving a budget for each of these.
Say that again.
All right, as a Board of Finance, you have a budget that's presented that is each line section.
Yeah, we
However you-
do, we
yeah.
do.
Yeah, no,
We
no, I'm
review
just saying,
everything, right?
it's budgeted off of each of these high level categories.
Yes.
Um, Yeah, so when, in March, when selectmen and the Board of Ed come to you to present their budgets, it'll be more detailed than
Right.
this, obviously, it's gonna be 10, 12 pages long.
Yeah,
With-
it's-
But it'll say selectmen's, salary is this amount, and it was an increase, or a 3% increase, or it wasn't an increase, right? It will go down in detail every line, every
Okay.
sub-line of
Yep.
every department.
Now, we cannot tell them, I'm just asking this maybe off point, but, we can't go back to like the Board of Education and say, well, you can't pay the teachers this much, you can't do this much. They give us a budget, we're worried about the bottom line, and if the bottom line doesn't work for us, we have to go back and say, hey, you guys have to find $10,000, you have to find
Yeah.
$20,000.
Right.
So even though we get that report, we can't go through it line by line and say, nope, can't have that for this, can't have that for this.
No.
That's not our job.
That's.
No, especially the Board of Ed.
We
Yeah.
We got that, we got that, we got that.
Bottom line, or, and that's,
Right.
they will tell you what they're doing, and when you look at the reports, it could look like, they've spent a subline like crazy, the department's gone crazy because of something, I don't know. But as long as their bottom line is in.
So they can move it around any way they want, is that basically
They
what you're
can
saying?
spend it anyway.
Any way they want, right,
Right.
okay. So basically what they're giving us is like a wish list and says, this is what we'd like to do, but if they can't do A, then because they don't have enough money, they can take whatever they have and spend it any way they want, and we don't have any
Well, they
say.
know that what department, a department's gonna be under,
Mhm.
by $10,000, but they added a new teacher and had to put the insurance in or something, and so now that line's gonna go over by 10,000.
And they can take it, rob Peter to
But
pay
all
Paul,
they do
basically.
is
Yeah,
they don't change the budget
budget,
figure, they
right.
leave the budget figure the way it is,
Mhm.
and just pay it out of the appropriate line. They
Mhm.
don't go and take it out of,
And I would,
Building
I would
maintenance or
just
something,
change
yeah.
what Carol said a little bit by saying they don't spend whatever they want, they spend what they need. And they also, when, it's not a wish list, it's a plan,
No, I realize it's a plan, but what I'm saying, within the Board of Education, you give them $100,000, they can only spend $100,000, but they can spend it on insurance, they can spend it on
Yes.
crayons, they can spend it on paper,
Whatever
but at
they,
the
but
end
they
of the
need to
day,
tell you.
Right.
That, but they're,
and why?
when they're getting that 100,000, they have to say, this is what the
What our
100,000
plan
Your
is
plan
for.
is.
This is what we're planning to use it for. They can't. But there's,
Linda, you may have answered this already, but come year end, if you're over budget, you've over expended in a particular line. How do you, not the Board of Education, just the town budget, how do you reconcile that?
so what happens is come June, would send out a email to you all saying that, the debt interest is over by $1,700, but the legal department is underspent by 20,000. So we'll just amend those two budgets and take 1,700 out of the legal department and put it into the debt interest.
And there's a cap on your ability to do that, or is that?
Not the internal, because, this budget has been approved.
Okay,
Okay, your cap is only on supplemental appropriations
okay,
of 20,000 aggregate.
could you talk a
And you
little bit about that?
cannot do it to a line twice.
Right.
So, which we had that come up, that's why the dog fund, different things like that, you can't, you can approve, say, oh, you're gonna need 2,000 more in the dog fund line. And you can approve that takes out of your 20,000.
right,
We find out we had that horrible incident with cats, and now we need $5,000 more because we've got cats that we have to take care of. That has to go to town meeting, because you've already have done a
Okay.
supplemental
so,
appropriation.
so let's put supplemental appropriations aside for the minute, and you've got a town budget of $100, and it's got 10 lines. And one of them's overspent, one of them's underspent. The general approach is at the end of the year, the Board of Selectmen or somebody comes to us and says, we're over on one line, under on another, we're gonna juggle it around.
The treasurer will tell you that this is where I suggest that you take it out of.
And so we have to approve that at the end. of the year.
And if something's coming down the road, like the dog fund, something's coming down the road, the selectmen and the treasurer should be telling you that we got this incident with the cats, we're gonna have a huge debt on this, and we have to pay it. It's our responsibility as a
Right.
town, so,
Okay.
so you're given a heads up if something is going skewy. Right, Board of Selectmen?
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
And I remember, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interject here, but I remember the cat one, Amy, you probably remember that. being
Yeah,
on the board of,
Yeah, one of the
finance.
Board of Finance members will
Amy
remember
probably
that, yeah.
remembers it.
So if you, if from that
Right across the
$100,
street.
you have over and under, and you've moved it, or like for the dog fund, the one time, I'm just trying to understand this, and you only move $2,000. But you have $20,000, you can't go back into that 20 without a town meeting?
No,
To get us-
no, you as a Board of Finance can approve up to 20,000
Up to 20,000
aggregate
aggregate, okay,
throughout the fiscal year.
yes.
July to June.
Mm-hmm.
So you do that 2,000, so now you have 18,000 that you have left to play with before the end of the fiscal year.
Okay,
Doesn't mean you have to use it,
right,
but if you come down to, you got only 19, you've used 19,000, and now we have
got
to
it, okay,
pay, and we need 5,000 for the cat situation. Now you
Then
have to go to town meeting,
okay.
because even if it weren't a second appropriation to a line, you're
Right,
going to
because
go
we're-
over your
right,
20,000.
absolutely,
You
okay,
cannot go over your
okay.
20,000 aggregate.
And Linda, remind us the rule. Isn't there a limitation on how many times we can go to the well for a supplemental appropriation on a single budget line? Is it once a year, twice a year,
One time and then you have to go to town meeting.
You can amend it once,
second time?
second time goes to the town meeting,
got it, okay,
right? And you could take, if it needed a third one, you would take it to town meeting
again, okay,
again.
Regardless of if it was only $100, you'd still have to go to the.
Yes.
If it's over your 20,000, if it's gonna bring you over the 20,000, if they are gonna. bring you over the
Got it.
20,000.
So 20,000 aggregate is across all lines for
All
the
lines.
year.
Yep, the whole budget. Expenditure.
If there was still enough in the $20,000 budget, if you went back the second time, the same line item.
You have to go to
Have to go to
the
the
town
town
meeting.
town meeting regardless.
even if you're under the 20,000,
Yeah.
that's, okay,
Yeah.
that was
If
my
you're
question, that was my
If
question,
you're
yeah.
under the 20,000, but you've already put something in the dog fund, you then.
If you wanna go back for the dog fund,
Yeah,
but you
right.
can go for the
Town
apple
fund.
growing.
No, you're-
fund or whatever.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
the cat fund,
Cat fund.
exactly, or the cow fund.
Sounds like that's the bigger problem.
Left in the cap fund, 'cause it's poodles, cat.
No, two wells, there's two
One
wells.
is spayed, the one is not, oh,
Left.
don't be dropping it at my house, no.
Or neutered, I should say.
Neutered.
Neutered.
Oh, okay.
So we've gone through we've gone through the expenditure report. Now, I just wanna check to see if anybody else has any other questions on this one.
And again, like in the revenue, down at the
Yes.
bottom, if it's changing your lines up in here in your expenditure budget, I'm telling you what lines and why and when.
Yeah.
All right, you can go back to any,
So your
Town
general
meeting
fund,
minutes.
F from general fund, you've got it on two lines.
Yep.
The dog
Where-
fund
where are
and the
you
yucca
changing?
test. The bottom of the
Yeah.
expenditure,
Expenditure or revenue? You're doing
Expenditure.
Expenditures. okay.
down at the bottom of the expenditures. You've got two that are tagged to say from general fund for March 15th.
B and C.
And under Board of Finance approved,
Mhm.
it says on March 15th, there were two from general fund.
Yep.
And technically the 9/28/22. Right above it, the 17,000
This
was
goes to.
from
where?
general fund.
Oh, yeah,
Then-
yeah, that was. from
Yeah, so
them.
this,
That was town
this-
meeting approved.
And this,
these two, so they say general fund.
general fund, yeah.
And this one's general fund. So I'm just, I think for clarities, just put the
Put it
audit
general.
trail, put the audit trail there, so we
Right.
know.
I would also note that we have had, for this report, we had no Board of Finance transfers between departments at that point in
No,
time.
you
So
won't see
there is
it
a
until your
section.
June,
Good.
June
Tell
till
the board.
June.
So what happens if I may, and somebody's already answered this, the state liberty grant and the state election assistance, where does that go?
It went to, look at the account number that's right next to it. And if you go higher
Okay,
up,
so
you're
go to
only
town
gonna-
clerk,
You're only
okay.
gonna see the department,
Okay,
The
total.
10/10,
You're gonna see 1010 department total, but the subline that it went to was to GR 920, which is,
so
Grants
that's,
for
so this
reporting.
6,500. is
okay, so
there.
we're only gonna see it here on this page for the amended, and then at the
Yeah.
more complete summary, it'll tell us exactly where it went, is that what you're saying?
you know, this is telling you where it went. So you should look at 1010,
Right,
and it should have changed from the original budget to the
here we go,
amendment.
hit 10 right here, so this is the original, this is the amended,
And it went to-
Six- 6,500 increase.
okay.
Okay.
What's what's the, three asterisks at the bottom? Of your expenditure?
Your percentage.
Oh, it's
Of
telling me
what?
the percentage of you through the fiscal year. So
Every
it's
month.
So you're
83% through the fiscal year, but you're only 73% expended.
Okay,
That was
I
another
think-
request by the Board of
I
Finance.
think it needs a little clarifying on it.
Okay, so it's,
Board of Finance
yeah,
request.
I think it should
figured
say,
was-
I think it should say, you know, we're 83% through, I mean, it doesn't,
It says 18 through fiscal year.
You
83
just
of what?
wanna say that it's 80%
Through the year or 83, we are,
of, I would say 80% of
8 months.
fiscal year.
yeah, and I get that now, that makes.
It's a
but
label.
I think- I-
Yeah, I just assumed, I did understand it, only because I knew April was, let's see, July, what is that, 6, 7,
To me,
8,
that
9?
would make you think that you're spending 83% of, and you're not. You're
Yeah.
only going through your months. This is only
Yeah,
talking
this
about
is
your
months.
months.
Yeah.
Your percentage of 73 is how much you spent.
So I
So
don't
it's a
know.
comparison. It's just showing you.
Yeah.
that
It's a
Okay.
tough
I don't
We're
know how you
under
label
where we
it.
expect it to be. We're under
It
where
just,
we
it
expect it to
didn't,
be.
yeah,
Yeah, but how would you label it differently? I don't know.
I don't know, time, I don't know, I guess it's.
Through
really-
April 30th, 2023.
Yeah, I guess it's my. 80%
Well, what they're
But
saying
you're-
is you're
you're
83% through the
measuring
fiscal
time.
year,
Of
so
the
yeah,
fiscal
so
year,
it's,
yeah.
it makes sense to me
It
that.
makes sense now that I
Me too.
understand it, but I didn't.
Yeah. Okay, thanks. Any other questions about the expenditure report right now, at least? I know you haven't done. Okay,
Okay, so then
capital reserve.
on that particular report was our capital non-recurring reserves, right? This is where that summary page in the front said the 900 and,
Right.
was it 900?
Capital reserve.
Yeah, 900, yeah, yep, this is where all that money is and why it's in there, right? And
What its
how
purpose
often, whoops, sorry. Well, how often it's supposed to be, what the projected use of that money is,
Right.
right? Like the heavy equipment, they need to purchase an excavator in 3 years. We're building up toward that, right? Coming in right here, right? We try to replace a truck every 5 years. A highway truck, so,
Planned expenditure.
fire truck gets replaced, should be replaced more often, but it's 10 to 15 years or whatever, so.
This is I should know the answer to this, but I don't. How often are these fed and how is it reviewed and approved about the amounts that go into these reserve funds?
So, there's a budget line in your expenditure, right, for your reserve, your capital reserves. When the budget is being put together, the selectmen are looking and other different departments that they affect are looking at what their need is going to be. Like assessors just went through a revow, so they need to save up enough money, so in 5 years they can do another revow. We just had a full revow, which was a big price item. 5 years we go to a second revow, but it's it's a very not in-depth revow. So like the assessors will say, we're looking at prices for a small revow of 5 years being 30,000 or whatever, right? So now we know that in 5 years, we've got to have 30,000 in this account to be able to pay for that, because that is not something that is a budgeted item.
Right?
Um,
So it's not part of your town budget that we approve, is it?
yes, it is.
It is.
Every 10/26 and 10/28.
10/28.
10/28, yep.
Non-recurring capital accounts, so.
Oh, here we go.
If we decide in a given budget year to put $500,000, say, into all of our various capital reserve accounts, we'd see $500,000 beside line 1028, and then it would be divvied up among the various.
How, right, but
Right.
because in 10/28, in the detail of 10/28 tells you every line that, yeah, the highway truck's gonna get 30,000 and the fire truck is gonna get 30,000. Ambulance is gonna get 5, or, pool is gonna get this amount, it'll go all the way down through. And that can change any given year, depending on what's gonna happen in any one of those departments. Like, they gotta resurface the pool, then we gotta make sure that we have money in there to do that, and, if that's.
So when we approve, let's say, we look like we approved 126,000 in capital reserves for last fiscal year.
Yep.
They aren't dispersed all at once, they're just, they're funded at different times. And it looks like they're funded at the end of June and in mainly in August. And
Correct.
is that the only time that this changes other than is
Other
interest,
than disbursements out of them,
disbursements and interest?
and interest is the only thing that's gonna change that, right?
Okay.
Kellogg always puts their money in, at the end of the year to their capital reserves.
Everything
I
else
was
except for
advised by the
registrars.
auditors years ago that our capital reserve should go in as soon as possible.
Mhm.
Can't do that until at least the end of August because of the tax coming in, you know, because I don't get all the
Money's gotta
money.
come in, but
Right.
The taxes don't come in until
Seems to
2 weeks of July,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, it seems to
anyway.
be, it seems to be working.
it works, yeah.
There's only one that's different, and that was, the registrars, but
We haven't funded that.
After-
That was started back when we went to those
yeah, it wasn't
new
funded for a while.
machines, you know, those new
2009,
machines that we
yeah.
now use.
Mhm.
The state gave us those machines. Back in, what's her name, Peterson, Mary Peterson's day. That's when we got those machines, and state said if it has to be replaced, it has to be replaced at the town's cost.
Mhm.
They haven't made that happen. They gave us 3 machines.
We're using them.
We hardly, we used to,
Right.
but. I
But you
mean,
have 11,000 in there if you
in
need to.
case,
In
yeah,
case,
who
yeah,
knows
got
what
it.
it's gonna cost if we really
Right.
have to replace it. I don't know what the cost is.
Okay, thanks, I didn't mean to perseverate.
Yeah, and some of them you can see, and I've tried to give you a descriptor of how that works, so. How they're used.
Great.
To use any of this money here has to go to town meeting.
So even if it's been put in here, we still have to ask permission. Got it.
Have to go to town meeting. So anything coming out of here goes to, the request goes to the selectmen, and the selectmen present it to the Board of Finance. The Board of Finance recommends it if they agree to town meeting. And that's the,
So they can deny purchasing a new fire truck in 4 years if the town decides
if the fire department came and
Okay,
said,
so
we
it-
have a $500,000.
everything on this list.
truck.
Okay.
Release anything.
And-
Got it.
Okay.
Okay.
This is how we're gonna fund it out of this money and maybe some of the, fire department's money or whatever. But yes, selectmen can disapprove of it, you guys can disapprove it, and the town can disapprove it.
When does that,
But please don't do that on a fire truck.
Yeah, right.
It's only to your benefit. that we have a fire truck,
Yeah.
you know?
get that earmarked for a new fire truck? And say the tanker needs a new transmission, can you take money from?
Yeah, it's a general.
And use it towards a new transmission versus a brand new truck. Is that what you're saying? Yeah.
Correct, if it's not something that's in their budget to do, because they have,
Budgets.
a work, parts and repairs of trucks and it can't fit in there, then they would come, yes. Yeah.
But
the
still
same
have to
with-
get permission to take any portion of that at a town meeting.
The reserves.
Right,
out of it.
anything.
Any
out of-
portion.
Any portion.
Got it.
Any
Okay.
portion, right. Yeah, some of them are generic because you can't keep changing the names of these accounts without closing the account and starting a new one,
Right.
right? No, isn't that so much fun?
Yeah.
And trying to track down everybody's signature is even more of a hassle, I have to tell you. But like environmental cleanup reserve, we've used that for multiple different purposes, but they fall into an environmental situation, right? 107, 108 Main Street Property Reserve. That's for either one of these 2 buildings, if it needs a furnace or something like that, it's gonna come out of something like this here. Okay, heavy equipment reserve can sometimes be a plow that has to come out of it if we don't have it in the budget to pay for it, but those all have good to me.
Thank you.
And
We have the Board of Ed, is this something that we generate, or do they generate?
they produce it. Kellogg has a board clerk,
Yeah.
and she cuts all the checks and produces this report.
Okay.
The checks come to the treasurer of the Board of Ed, which currently now is Teresa.
Mhm.
And then the treasurer signs off. You're letting, because the principal and board chair and the treasurer have to sign off on every invoice that's presented to Cindy, that's who does this, Cindy, but, to make that payment. So getting information from Kellogg sometimes timely enough to do your report is an issue. And the way the month falls, it can be an issue of getting your reports done in a timely fashion. Honestly, I would never give you a report that wasn't, I hadn't balanced out. Balanced out.
Who do we ask for a minor change? Like, this first column, it should be labeled per the month that it is reporting on. Do we ask that formally at the Board of Ed?
Cindy, I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed she's running it, she's running
It's
it
an
cash
April.
basis, and it's same
Right.
thing here,
Yeah,
I'm going,
same
she's
thing
running it.
there. It should be April.
I think it should be through April, but
It's April's report, when she says it's a cash report.
Right.
for
I know,
April,
it says on the
is
but she
April's
really
report.
should be
Right,
running
but
it through
that's,
April.
yeah,
You
yeah.
can talk to Cindy about that.
Okay.
If you don't like her
Okay.
setup, you can
Yeah,
talk.
well, it's a minor change. I'm sure it's
Um,
fine, yeah.
I just found it interesting that this is a very detailed versus we have a
They
summary.
have QuickBooks.
Well,
because
I
that's
understand, but do you really need
All
the
the
full
detail.
detail?
I know. Well, and that's the thing.
I mean, I guess I
Thing.
I understand, I think it's,
I mean, for
it's,
Board of Ed, I
the
can
Board of Ed
explain
needs
because
it.
you guys
The
all
Board of
wanna
Ed needs
see
it,
It
but
might be
where
easier
the-
than doing two reports.
Right,
yeah,
right.
well, it's QuickBooks.
Yes.
It's,
I
it
mean,
is easy.
personally,
Right.
going, going into QuickBooks, I would stay with this format, you know, for the town.
Oh, yeah, I
And,
agree.
and you could get a copy of the budget, you know, from QuickBooks attached to it, just for, because
Reference.
you don't know if it's reconciled, yeah.
So, you get the Board of Ed reports, and that's when you have their final number, it's really one number you take.
Right, to put into that
Put it
summary
in the
page.
summary.
Yeah,
Right,
Okay.
Yeah.
but,
it throws the
coming-
whole thing off.
I know if you don't have. it.
Yeah.
right, and what, when you look at the summary page, there's, a thing that says Kellogg, go down under cash requirement, and then it says Kellogg's accounts payable. If a payday for Kellogg is, I'm gonna just, the January 2nd, which is a Friday, I would get the checks on Tuesday, which is December. And it's going to go into my, because this is cash basis, it's
Mhm.
in my accounts as of December. So, and her report is through December, but there's this January that I've already taken out of here. So that's when that gets thrown in
Plugged in,
there,
yeah.
is like that
Mhm.
last. And it only happens maybe twice a year, three
Mhm.
times
It's only
a year,
because
but
of
it just
timing.
depends
Yeah,
on
the
how
timing.
the
Cycle.
calendar falls,
Okay.
right?
That makes sense.
So that actually would be another line here that
That's
is
that line,
not
right,
here,
but
that
Kellogg,
has
there
zero
would
right
be
now.
something right
Yeah,
under that
so when there's nothing
774.
there.
Can we
be-
put a zero?
I can put it.
Can you put a zero,
I can put
please?
a zero.
Is it intended? to
Actually, we
be-
should put a line.
Or a
when you
line
put
or
when you
something,
put
I've got a
when you put
line.
zero
Oh.
there, you can then make it.
I can make a
you know,
line,
line
yeah.
just
and
so there's
it-
something
and
in
it's-
there.
Yeah, Excel.
Linda, is that intended to be paired with the line above it, cash requirements? Is there some reason why they're together?
It's just
Okay.
whatever, it's just whatever is going to change, because we have your,
We're gonna change your
you
net.
take your net general fund, right?
Mhm.
Then you
But
just-
all the others are separate. Those two are lumped together.
You're talking about
Well,
because
it's
there's
just,
space
I think
closed?
there's, I
Yeah.
did put a space
Yeah.
there, space there, but you see, you're doing a total here,
Right.
yeah, because you're taking your general fund
Okay.
total,
Right,
Mhm.
subtracting out what we put aside to balance the budgets.
right.
That gives you what our general, what we can use for the general.
And I
fund.
think the confusing part, and I'm just from presenting and having presented, it's all in one line. It doesn't say that it's less or whatever. I mean, I understand it now, having gone through it. And it's not a negative, usually if your cash requirement, it's a negative to what's above. So I think that's a little confusing. I understand what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's
Oh, so you can
wrong,
say
but
less. it's
yeah,
less
but
whatever.
if you've got a total, the net
Mhm.
general fund's total, you're gonna less cash requirements for this
You
and
can do
this.
that, yeah.
I think
Yeah,
that
you
would
can
just,
less
it
than
just
less.
clarifies exactly what you're doing, even if the number's not a negative.
And
And
actually,
less.
Ginger, it would mirror this.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
if it's in parentheses, would
Yeah.
be very clear, because it's in parentheses down here.
We'll say, yeah, but.
Yeah, I understand what you're doing,
Yeah.
But
would
it's
put the word
Excel, I
less,
guess.
and then less those two categories.
So do you, when you do the stuff that comes from the accounting software
Yep,
and that Excel that you sent, that has all the reports, is that something that is downloaded from them? Or is it something you're filling in?
billion,
Okay,
because I balance out. for your
so
invoice.
I guess my thought is, if that's Excel, it should be pulling from the revenue, it should be pulling from the
And that's the
expenditure.
accounting software.
That's
It's
why I'm
archaic.
asking,
It's
that's why I'm
archaic.
asking,
You
if
can't
it's
do that.
Excel, you can.
Right, but all the Novak and Dodge.
That's
programs-
what produces from Novak and Dot.
All the Novak and Dodge will not talk to Excel.
I understand, so you've got
No.
Excel,
You mean, wait,
Yeah.
but
I
if you
take-
do, but
I
if you
take an
do
8-page, I take
document,
an 8-page report like this, which,
Yeah.
And enter
and
it.
I enter it and I
Oh, but
balance
what
to
I'm-
the bottom.
but what
and
I'm
it
getting
saves
is,
the revenue.
Yeah.
And I balance it every month to it.
Oh my
QuickBooks is going to make it.
I
so-
understand, but I'm just saying, if these numbers are here, they should be feeding to here.
Oh, to that one, yes.
Yes.
They should not be, they
those
shouldn't
do.
be hand entered, and they're
Actually,
hand
those do.
entered.
you do that.
No, they don't feed over, I
They
looked at
don't
the
feed
cells,
over, no.
I looked at the cells,
Because
they're
I
not
tried to do
feeding.
that and it doesn't work.
But you
I'm
can do
not
it on the sheet.
well enough to do, I don't know the
Okay, well,
calculation, make it go
you know, one
that
of
way.
us-
It's literally a plus.
Are you talking about tab to tab?
Yeah,
Is
yeah,
there-
tab
they
to
should
Okay,
be
yeah,
linked
that-
up, they should be
Yeah,
linked
that-
up, so they're
right.
feeding over
Right,
and this way, there's no confusion, and you, once you just enter the revenue, it's gonna fix your
Automatically.
front,
If you need
Yeah.
assistance with that,
Yeah.
I know Excel pretty well.
yeah.
okay.
Thank
All right,
you.
so yeah,
Yeah.
help over that. then. Yep.
Some
I think
formulas. Now.
Just a couple of questions and observations. I'm back on the summary sheet. Everything I have to say is on the summary sheet. Steve, your summary at the very beginning.
Yep.
The ARPA funds down on the bottom, would I be correct in thinking that the balance is somewhere in the general fund bank accounts?
No,
It's in a separate account someplace?
ARPA has to be kept totally
Okay.
separate.
And
Okay.
I am at fault because I didn't share that. That was a separate report she gave us that month. And
Okay,
it was a
Yeah,
separate.
oh,
account.
yeah, I used to, yeah.
We did.
Okay, so
I
that's
So I
actually
probably
had
haven't told her to send it to you.
I want to go, so that's clear. I want to go back to the Kellogg account payable just for a second. You've explained why, we sometimes will have an account payable, and it sounds like it has to do with different timing between our accounting and BOE's accounting.
Correct.
So my only question is this, if you put a space, I mean, those are two separate things. You have a cash requirement of 774, and then sometimes you have a positive number between or beside Kellogg accounts payable. They're different things, right?
Mhm.
Okay, so I found it confusing that they were lumped together, and so I would just separate those by a space.
Right,
Oh,
and we're
line
gonna do that.
space.
and
Yeah.
we're gonna
Yeah, I can
do
do
the
that.
category of
Or,
less than
or
stuff
you
on
do it
these.
together, you do a total and you just, you create a subtotal.
And
Yeah.
since Kellogg
Of that
accounts
grouping.
payable are such an unusual thing, I would suggest keeping them separate. It's easy for us to know what it is on the few months that
It's
it.
fine, I can use that line in between.
Now.
Because I do want to say that I too thought that one number represented both those things.
Oh.
Because there was no line space there.
Well, even
And
without
there
the
was no
space.
number.
Yeah, if there was a zero there, then it would have been clear.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's just a clean thing.
Yep.
Let's see. So the other things, are just recommendations. I have three of them, I think. One is, could you guys append to the summary, the cover page of the accounts? So it says you've got $849,000 in National Iron Bank. Would it be a big deal for you guys to just PDF the cover page of the accounts each month? So when we get the report, we see the backup?
So you want the
You want
first
the
page of
statement,
the
the first page
statement?
of the
Yeah,
statement
just the
that
first
shows
page
that?
of the statement, yeah,
So
We
you'll
can
have
do
a
that, but
page for
you-
each one,
Yeah,
yes.
But
we can
it's,
do that.
but it won't.
but
tell you-
remember that I'm balancing like to it, so
It might
not be
show
this
that
number.
balance.
Cause like other checks haven't cleared, stuff like that, I'm still, I balance my
Okay,
accounts and then give the total.
You reconcile.
But this-
Reconcile, right,
but
so,
this, for example, is at the end of April, April 30, this report.
Mhm.
So if there's a summary sheet for the account for the end of April, they're probably done.
So you wanna
that
see the
quick.
recommend, the.
You wanna see-
recommendation?
Reconciliation?
Just to cover the account. So that we
How does
can
it help
see-
you?
Well, it's.
Yeah.
Right, but the
I- I-
account,
It's just backup, we're the Board of Finance.
Yeah, but
right,
what
but
is,
the balance,
it's
the
not gonna be
balance
the same
from the
at-
bank account,
Just the balance, yeah.
but the balance from the bank account to here is not gonna be the
It's
same
not gonna be
number.
the same number.
Right.
You're not gonna have coincidence of the dates?
No.
No, because you're gonna
Jackson and
reconcile.
reconcile.
Like if like an example is if I did a payroll, maybe everybody hasn't cashed their check yet.
right, but
So
you're
it's not-
saying,
Right, right.
It's not gonna be the same
Okay.
balance,
Okay.
yeah.
So scratch that.
yeah, I don't think
Okay.
it could give us more
Um,
information.
So two other suggestions. One of them you've already talked about. At the bottom, if you look at the revenue receipts and the approved budget, the amended budget, year-to-date activity, and then the unexpended, or uncollected balance in this case, those numbers are off by the amount of unexpected revenue
That
that you
came in.
have. Yeah, so could you, is there room to put another column there that just is headed unexpected revenue? And then it's gonna make all those numbers add up. In other words, look at.
The over, you know,
I
the
know, I
over
know what you're
collected.
doing, cause I
Yeah.
know.
Because I looked at
Say.
those numbers and I said, something's missing, and now I know what it is.
So you can put it off to the side, you could make it off to the side, but you can't include it in the calculations. Because you don't wanna include those negative, those over collected lines into this. Because then it's gonna skew what you really have to collect, yet to collect. Right, so we have yet to collect 178,000,
Right,
but if you look at 38, 50, 62, 70, 71, 83. So say just roughly
Right.
82,000 in those negative numbers,
right.
you end up taking it off that. When editing this
178.
calculation, it comes off that 178,000.
Right,
And it's not giving you a true figure of what you still have yet to collect.
right.
We-
Well, I know you have 178 on this report, hundred and
Right,
seventy-eight
to collect,
still to collect.
right.
But if you look, and I know you know this, but it's just a presentation point. If you look at the difference between the amended budget, which is 5679, and the year-to-date activity, 5587, the difference between those is not what we have left to collect. It's what we have left to collect less the unexpected revenue.
Right.
So if there were
Footnoted.
just
Needs
a
a footnote.
column in,
Needs a
no,
footnote.
if just a column in there would make all the numbers.
I think that footnote should do it.
I think it needs a footnote.
Or some explanation.
Yeah.
It makes it
Footnote on the
clear.
revenue receipts, it should have a footnote and just an asterisk down below that just says, you know, see the,
That the 5587 includes over collected amounts.
yeah.
Yeah. Because I wouldn't want to change the 178.
No, you don't wanna change
I
it.
don't
That
want to
throws off
Potentially,
what your projected general
Right.
fund is gonna be at the end of the year.
Yeah.
right, so a footnote would be helpful for the year-to-date activity revenue receipts, that 5587.
Yep.
And just with an asterisk that says includes over collected totals.
Of whatever.
Yeah,
whatever.
And then we can
of
pull
the-
it
and the-
from
and the
that.
number.
Pull it
So
from
you
that.
want me
In that column,
to take the
yes.
total from this column
Yep.
and put it in a footnote
N-
there.
And
Yeah.
just a footnote,
Okay,
But we'll be making a new column.
it'll,
there and-
yeah,
and
yeah,
doubling
so
it,
it's
yeah.
just
Yeah.
taking that.
because you put a footnote and then the reader is looking at it going, oh, okay, this is why this doesn't balance.
No,
No, the
she's saying,
column,
she's saying
On the
this one here.
revenues, total, on the revenues.
Yeah.
Gonna clean this up and give us a total at the bottom.
Yeah, but we just don't need a new.
No, she's not gonna add a new
No,
column
no,
there.
no, no,
Just a
I'll just put
footnote.
a footnote.
Just so we're flat
Yep.
footed.
Okay.
Last, observation. The most important number here for us, month to month, is your projected general fund.
Mhm,
That's the one that's gonna help us make decisions.
mhm.
And, you know, we can tell, looking at the report and the backup, where this number comes from, it all makes sense. But the presentation of it caught my eye, because if you start at the balance in the bank accounts, which is 1.8 million here, 1.8 plus. And then you subtract what we've committed of that from the general fund, then you get your net general funds total, which is 1.6. Then you subtract the cash requirements, which if you go down to the bottom, have already been goosed by the same $261,000. So it's entered the 261, and then it's mathematically negated, and you get to the right number. But the presentation, I think, the numbers that I think, the way I look at the world are off, even though the final answer isn't off, is that when you say net general funds of only 1.6, it would make more sense to me if that was the full 1.8, and then the subtractions of what we really have to spend for the rest of the year, our remaining educational and town budget, less the revenue that we get to collect, it's gonna take you down to the same number. But I found this booking the 261 as an offset to the accounts, and then making it a positive factor in the calculation of what we have to spend for the next year. I just found it to be somewhat confusing, so maybe nobody else did, but this could be a simpler presentation with the 261s out of there. And we get to the same number. It's just a suggestion, because I think there's just some unnecessary information there that tends to obscure the bottom. It doesn't obscure the bottom line, it's right, but how you get there is made to seem more complicated than it really is.
So you can't take it out of the summary, because sometimes we do have activity in that appropriation. In this particular report, we didn't.
Well,
You
I
can note
didn't
the
generally-
activity without putting it in the summary.
put a figure in there until June, because then I know how much
Mhm.
I have to do to balance everything out. But unless I know that I spent like the 5,000 for the general fund, dog fund or something, I already took it out, I can put 5,000.
So are you saying, John, just so I make sure I understand, are you saying this should not include?
I think the report can be simplified by simply eliminating this line, the committed funds. Not that we're not supposed to know it, but this is a summary of our financial picture. So if you eliminated it there and you eliminated it here, you get exactly the same number right there. These two numbers would be different.
Right.
1.6 would be 1.8,
Right.
and the 774 would be 261 higher than it is. But you're gonna get the right answer. It's just a simpler report.
How do other people feel about that?
Well, there's a difference, isn't there, between committed funds and cash requirements? Because committed funds are not available for cash requirements, so I think you do need them separately.
Well,
Actually,
I'm not disputing that we need to know about them, but I'm just saying the presentation of them twice, once as a debit and another time as a credit, just seems
they're actually,
unnecessarily confusing to me.
yeah,
But
to me, it's not confusing.
if
Well,
it's just me,
it's not confusing to me, because I know it's in the
Okay, so just stick with
774
the bottom line.
number.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's in there, they wash each other out on the upper half.
Well, they wash each other out here and here.
It's hard
Here,
because we don't
here and
use,
here that they wash
we
each
don't
other out.
indicate
This
negative or
comes
positive.
from that.
Exactly.
Yeah, we don't indicate negative or positive here.
Right.
We just, everything's positive, and that's very confusing. That's gonna shift completely with QuickBooks. It's gonna look exactly the opposite. It's gonna look like it should. I kind of wish we did is it a negative or
Negative or
positive,
positive.
and to me, if your expenditure, that's a negative, it's not,
Yes.
I mean, go ahead.
No,
Think about
just one quick question. Michelle, Linda, how significantly will this report change once we go to QuickBooks?
You're gonna
You're
get,
gonna get the same thing.
Yeah.
You'll get the
you'll get the
thing.
same.
Right,
But
but
it'll be
going
you're
back-
not gonna get the
Going
summary out
back
of
to
it.
Don's point about presentation, how much simpler does QuickBooks? Because if my understanding is correct,
You'll have the
and I'm
negative.
looking over at Ginger, our expectations are that these numbers will be fed in, they'll all reconcile the QuickBooks, knowing people who use QuickBooks, and it'll be a simpler presentation when this report is printed out. Am I hoping for too much, or am I hitting the nail on the head with this one?
It'll be the same report.
So let's ask the question differently, Dave.
Yeah, go ahead.
This is out of Excel, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Right,
So are you still gonna still produce this Excel report when you have QuickBooks behind it? Or are you gonna produce a similar report out of QuickBooks? I guess is the question.
Should give you your own report.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we won't have a summary like this.
No.
We
Not
won't
like
have a summary like this.
You're gonna have your income statement,
Right.
you're gonna have your cash report.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That-
You don't
that
need
was-
any-
And I
That's
wanna
why
see,
need any of
I
that.
think that makes more sense because
I
there's
had a-
error potential.
Right.
Feed it in.
Right. Said.
Hold on, let's try not to talk too much over each other. So that's good news. One, when you get QuickBooks, you won't be entering those figures. Oh, God, had I known. And the second thing is that you will be able to export those reports and have them automatically feed into the other sheets once, Tom or someone else shows you how to do that. So that you aren't actually entering these figures, they're picking them out of your downloaded Excel sheets. And it will automatically, do what you want it to do, and we'll see up-to-date, accurate reports.
These are accurate reports.
Oh,
to begin with.
Yeah.
Please don't
Oh,
make
no,
it sound like they're not accurate.
No, this is
Yeah.
accurate.
But yes, and I
Yeah.
assume so.
Yeah.
I won't be doing that.
Oh, no.
So.
Yeah, no, actually,
I assume so.
I actually
I'm
sent
not-
your Excel sheet that you had sent us in April, and you could see the formula right in your Excel that you had entered.
Right.
So that was really helpful, and actually to be sent Excel sheets is preferable for me at least, because you can understand, the basis of the numbers. You can say read only if you like, which would be probably wise, when you send an Excel sheet. But it would be, I mean, no, you don't wanna do something by mistake. But I think that would be helpful too. I think it's just, it's important that the Board of Finance have, up-to-date and accurate information, of course, and we depend on you for that. We can't, I would rather table a report if there's, incomplete information.
We'll make sure that we make a motion to do that next time, because we're not gonna sit there and spin over it like we did last time.
Right.
But I think if
I'm
The
not gonna
treasurer-
send a report again that doesn't have the.
If you don't have the Board of
So-
Ed,
so
I think we
when-
have to table it.
Right, I'm
Yes.
just going to not, I'm just gonna say I don't have the Board of Ed and not send one that month.
Yes.
That's,
But
Yeah.
you also need to know that it isn't just always the Board of Ed that
And
delays
balancing
getting these
statements and
reports
stuff.
done.
there's so.
Getting the statements in and balancing them so that we know that these account balances are correct. Depends
then
on the
as-
month and
And
how
then
the
as
month
Michelle
falls,
pointed
you know,
out,
you're
there
the-
was a whole bunch
You're
of
the
holidays.
second Monday
Right.
of the month.
It's too quick. It's
And-
too quick to turn it around.
Exactly, and if you don't work on Fridays, you have half a day on Thursday.
And you just had two holidays.
And she just had 4 weeks
Four
of no
holidays.
Mondays.
Yeah.
And 1 week of half days,
Right.
2 half days.
Yeah.
half days.
Whatever, yeah.
You know, it was.
So I just wanna let you know
December
that
is
we
gonna be
understand
horrible.
that.
January is gonna be horrible because of all the, 1099s and W-2s and all the
Extra
state
stuff.
quarterly annual reports that have to be done, that
Mhm.
getting these things to you guys that first week is not the top priority, I'm sorry. You
Which
can
is-
come-
which
You
is-
can come in and see her anytime you want and ask her
Yeah.
what's going on,
And-
or set up a meeting with her. So you could see if there's questions, but,
I think it's great that you've helped us be more aware of this. We will have at least an updated December report
Yeah.
that's great.
Yes.
Yeah.
And now we understand how vital it is for you to have QuickBooks. Do you have a plan in place for that transition?
We're working on plans for the.
Okay, if you need a guidance on that from others on the Board of Finance who may have expertise in that, please let us know, because
Of
we
course.
don't. I think I forwarded something to you from TechSoup about transitioning.
Oh, yeah,
QuickBooks.
yes, you did.
Yeah. So just, there are people who have been through that headache.
Do we have do we have, additional for
Funds.
support funds for you to, have? I mean,
Yeah,
QuickBooks has tech support all over,
Yes.
Yes,
Is-
and that will be in consideration for the next fiscal year too, because that's
Yeah.
when we'll.
there's gonna be enough
Make sure
money
you-
in the budget to purchase the payroll program
program.
and update the QuickBooks that we have right now on the computer.
Life will be so much easier.
But make sure you have the training. I mean,
Yeah.
let's make sure we have the training
Right,
money in there.
I've never done payroll on QuickBooks.
So the twenty,
We
we
did
anticipating a
the
2024 or 2025
I
switch?
Treasurer,
This
Okay.
coming.
and she does
July
July, so
1st, we're
she's.
gonna-
She's gonna help.
For the actual implementation,
When does that?
Actual-
Actually start.
Implementation, he said,
Is
it's July first.
okay,
July
so this year.
Ideally, you want that up and running for the next fiscal year, right?
Right,
It's something we're
right.
working on
So there was,
transitioning
this past year, in my time, I was going back and forth, did I wanna change it in January? So all my W-2s and 1099s are in one system? But that means that I have to manually feed half my budget into
Yeah.
the QuickBooks,
That-
so it came down to, no, we'll start with the fiscal year and we'll issue two W-2s, or we'll incorporate it into, I'm sure you can
Yeah.
put information into QuickBooks for the past fiscal, year.
Yep.
You know, like
Yes.
the 6 months that
Preceded.
QuickBooks does it, January to June, and put that in there so that for December of 20.
So back to
Or
what
you
Chris
should
was
have
saying though, when do you start training and setting things up so it's good to go for July first? Do you start in March? When do you start? Cause you start budgeting in March.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, February and March is budget time. Yes, we will be.
Doing
working on it.
QuickBooks.
We'll be working on it.
Okay.
Yep.
Great.
Amy, I also received an email asking for my job description.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And I know this is not a formal job description, by the way.
And
No,
the,
that is just what
This is
I
just-
wrote up as to what I do.
Yeah.
and
I
I
think-
included
yeah.
the state statute of what a treasurer does.
Thank you so much. And I think, I'm sure the Board of Selectmen, that's under your purview,
Correct.
that you would formalize this kind of thing and you understand the value of that.
Just a quick, before you adjourn, and I know I see people putting their papers away, Madam Chair, but before we do adjourn, I want to say that in my 6 years as being a selectman on the Board of Selectmen, this is the first time that we've had, and I think Linda will bear this out because she was here, but this is the first time that we've had the Board of Finance actually want to sit down and go through the report and actually look at the report in detail. So kudos to the board. for
I
wanting-
applaud John for pushing us to do that.
Kudos to everyone for wanting to do this, to have a better understanding of it. And
Great.
we would thank Michelle and Linda for.
Yes,
for-
thank you.
Next to that, I sat with Tam and Carol last week for about an hour.
It was more than an hour. I was here.
But she explained to me how they do their budget, and it was pretty enlightening.
I'm going to reach out to them and ask when their budget workshops are scheduled so that we are, oh, they did?
Yeah, I believe
Usually they let us,
Right, it's on the calendar.
usually they let us know directly, so that any Board of Finance member can zoom in or attend.
It's on the
And,
town calendar.
okay, well, I'm gonna ask them to send it to us so that I can share it. I'm not gonna make you go look at the town calendar unless you want to. But I did attend 2 of those workshops last year. I did find them very helpful as it kind of reflects your conversation with it. And to hear their conversations, and how they, grapple with things is very helpful.
That's basically what the selectmen also do
Mhm.
in starting February.
Yeah.
They will start looking at the budgets and getting the departments to submit their budgets. Very hard to get departments to submit their budgets on a timely basis to be able to present to you guys in March. But
all those nonprofits.
but we used to have probably a meeting every week or every 2 weeks to put the budget together. And everybody was, you looked into this, you looked into that, and whatever, but
Yeah, thank everybody for your time. If there's any other comments before we adjourn? No? And a motion to adjourn? So moved. Thanks,
Second.
Carol. Thanks, Tom. All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
Everyone stay warm today and tomorrow.
Yeah.